Thanks for staying with us this morning. We're in Manhattan at the Kansas Department of Agriculture, and we're with Susan Metzger, Deputy Secretary of Agriculture. Did I get that right?
It's Assistant.
Assistant Secretary of Agriculture for the state of Kansas. And we're going to talk about the Governor's Conference on Water, which is coming up next week. So, Susan, you and I have had a conversation about the Governor's Conference on Water for the last 3 years. I mean, we've kind of talked about it. How did we get to where we're going to be next week?
Great. So you're correct. This is going to be year number 4 for the Governor's Conference on the Future of Water in Kansas. And so 4 years ago, Governor Brownback wanted to make sure that there was an event that really elevated the conversation of water in the state. And so we used that as an opportunity to build on an annual conference that was already taking place. Historically, the conference was always technically focused. It was an opportunity to share research that was going on water resources, and we took this opportunity with Governor Brownback's lead to enhance that and add a day that was focused on policy and bigger statewide issues.
And does this kind of tie back into the Governor's 50-year water plan?
It certainly has become the opportunity to talk about our successes year after year now in implementing the vision. And it was the opportunity to really receive the call to action to his administration 2 years ago to develop the vision.
Well, not only that, but we've talked about the Redmond project. I think about 1.5 years ago, you and I talked about it. So, I mean, there's some things that the state's actually doing that will help us move farther down the road, maybe than 50 years, what the governor's hoping.
Absolutely, and this upcoming conference is going to be a great opportunity to really highlight some of those successes. Not only the dredging project kicking off at John Redmond, which you and I have talked about several times, but some new things that have happened this year as a result of the vision, such as the development of water conservation area policies, and even the implementation of a new conservation program in eastern Kansas to address nutrient impairments.
Tracy Straighter runs the water department, which is part of the Kansas Department of Agriculture. You know, his lead in doing some of this stuff, I think last year he and I talked, and he had done like 157 meetings or something like that,
right,
out in small rural communities, just reminding people the importance of water here in the state.
Absolutely. So while this conference is an opportunity to bring close to 700 people together to talk about water in one venue, it doesn't replace the fact that Tracy Straighter and others have really hit the ground running, going out to local communities and keeping the issue of water in the forefront of people's minds and conversations through those 150 meetings this past year, and then prior to that up to 500 meetings that were held during the vision development process. We're
going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about maybe some of the water right issues, maybe some of the issues we're facing dealing with Nebraska as well. So you're watching kansasAGreport. We'll see you in just a minute.
This segment brought to you by Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center. Your stem cells, your health, your life. Farmers Insurance, your best protection against the unexpected. Call Agent Dan Key at 785-408-5459. Grass and Grain, online or in the mail, keeping Kansas farmers informed for over 60 years. GrassandGrain.com. Blue River Traders, the finest selection of Western-style furniture for your home. BlueRiverTraders.com.
Thanks for staying with us. We're with Susan Metzger at the Kansas Department of Agriculture, and we're talking about the Governor's Conference on Water, which is next week, the 18th and 19th?
That's correct.
Exactly. So, okay, we kind of talked about how we got to where we're at. Let's talk about where we're going and maybe some of the things that is going to be discussed this next week.
Great. So the conference is broken into 2 days. The first day addresses policy and large statewide issues. We're going to have a great lineup of speakers. There's a speaker from the book called Influencer that talks about how you really promote and sustain large-scale change. And so he's really taking a look at our vision and thinking about how do you really sustain the motivation to make big differences in our water resources in Kansas in the future. Very excited about that presentation. We're also going to have somebody joining us from the state of Minnesota who helped put together a large regional water supply plan for the Red Rock Rural Water District, and it's something we're very interested in implementing here in Kansas. So some great lessons learned to come from him. The other thing on day one that's pretty exciting is a group called Watershed Plus that's out of Canada, and they work with water infrastructure and communities to bring arts into the way that we communicate about water. And they're going to share some really creative examples about how we can do that in Kansas.
Well, when we talk about state policy and things like that, we touched on it before I went to break, is our negotiations with Nebraska and some of the water right issues that we feel we have versus what they feel they have. So.
Right. So that's another positive outcome of the vision. There are several action items in the vision that talk about improving and protecting our water resources in the state compared to our neighbors. And about 18 months ago, we committed to changing the dialogue of what we have historically been doing, which is more going to the courts, enforcing our compact, vying for our right for the water from Colorado and Nebraska, which gained us some things in the past. But looking into the future, we really wanted to change that. And so 18 months ago, we committed to having monthly meetings with our partners in Nebraska and Colorado. And we use those monthly forums to talk about a different way of doing business. And we have been very successful in that. With both Colorado and Nebraska, we have negotiated short-term plans for how we will stay in compliance with our two neighboring states and also improve the delivery of water resources to Kansas citizens.